Hey you guys, this is Roger with Grass Monkey Simulations, and I wanted to make a video to go over with you either some frequently asked questions or things that I just think you might want to know if you've never used a head tracker before. If you follow the instruction guide or you watch the previous video, it's pretty straightforward to get you to that point, but we'll talk about config settings, map settings, and it's a very personal issue. Your mapping preferences. For some people, they can set it and forget it. And then you have the more fiddly types, say like myself, who almost turn map settings into a game in and of itself, just constantly fiddling. And it's not necessary. It can be, you can enjoy that, perfecting your map settings for whatever simulator you're in, whether it be in a combat flight simulator or a racing simulator, because those are going to be two entirely different setups. For racing sims, the default ANI for me is perfect because I don't need that much head movement. The only thing I need to be able to see in a racing sim are my left and my right mirror, and to be able to see the apex when I'm turning in. I don't need to see into the back seat. I don't need to see behind the car. I've got mirrors for that. I'm just concentrating on the road ahead. Whereas in a combat flight simulator, I want 360 degrees of vision. If I say I'm in a bubble top P-47 or P-51 Mustang, I want to see everything. That's the whole point of having a bubble top, is situational awareness, maximizing that. So your map settings in a combat flight simulator are going to be entirely different from a racing simulator, and this all has to take place. You'll be able to, even though you're turning your head 30 degrees left or right, in that 30 degrees you're going to be going from looking straight ahead to down the side of your airplane, checking your six. And for me, I want the movement to be smooth from straight on to about 45 degrees in the sim. I'm only from straight ahead to 45 degrees in the sim. That's going to equate to my map settings to about maybe 15 degrees of head movement. Whereas 30 degrees of head movement will take me from 45 degrees to 180 degrees. So that movement's going to be quicker. It'll be smooth from 0 to 45, and then from 45 to 180 it's going to be a more exaggerated movement, because all that's taking place between 15 degrees and 30 degrees. But I think you can just get from maybe that very poor explanation that it can be a fiddly process. You can download configs, profiles from the internet. I can't tell you where right offhand, but you may find a config or a profile that you sort of like, or you may find one that you love, but you may have one that you can just base your own off of and just save a copy, and then if you muck it up you can always toss it out and start over again. But yeah, mapping is probably the most personal thing. It's a very personal thing. People are different, and what I think is awesome for a combat flight simulator, someone else may not like at all. You may want to get rid of the head roll in your flight simulator or your racing simulator. It's only in our physical memory when we're driving and we turn. If the immersion level is high, physical memory is going to kick in, and your head's going to lean. And when your head leans, it's going to reflect on the screen through your head tracker. And that's actually what you would see when you're in a car, but you don't have the seat of the pants to go by in your computer chair. I have a rig, a sim rig set up. I made myself, but it doesn't have motion. But with the head tracker and then just the immersion level of that, I find myself cocking my head because I'm leaning into turns, etc., like that. And then it's reflected on the screen. And if you don't like the head roll, you can map that out so that your screen stays level and you're just looking up, down, left, right. You may want to be able to move around in your seat without actually leaning into the simulator. I can't imagine taking that out, but some people don't like leaning forward in their seat and it actually zooming in on the screen. They want that to stay in one place all the time. But those are all very personal preferences, and that's all stuff you can adjust within OpenTrack itself with just the mapping options. It's not common, but it is probably the number one question I get asked is I'll get a message from someone saying that the head tracker doesn't work, the lights won't come on. And so much so that I added it to the letter that I send out with each puck or Odyssey from Grass Monkey Simulations, is to state that they are infrared LEDs, and you won't see them when you turn on the unit. The infrared LEDs are invisible to the naked eye or barely visible. So when you do turn on your head tracker, obviously when you set it up in OpenTrack's going to see it vividly. But to the naked eye, it's going to be barely visible as either a dim red or orange or nothing at all. But if you set it up in OpenTrack and you don't have any lights, and you've got your battery in, the switch is turned on, but you don't see any lights on the screen, then there's a problem. The focus ring on the camera, that's also very important. On the camera, I don't know if you can see that or not, but anyway, this rotates. And whether you can see it or not, it doesn't really matter. There's a red dot and there's a blue dot. Make sure your focus ring is rotated to the red dot. It's just that simple. That'll help you a lot. You'll get better performance from it that way. It'll work either way, but it'll work better on the red dot. Align the camera with the head tracker. The camera's only job, it has one job and one job only, and that's to look at the head tracker. So that's all you care about. So just take a little extra time to make sure, tilt it, whatever. I wear the head tracker on the right side, so my camera is to the right of the monitor. If you want your camera mounted in the middle of your monitor, that's fine, it will still work. But I think you'll get better performance if you actually put it in line with the side of your head that you wear your head tracker on. And then tilt it so that it's looking right at your puck or your Odyssey. And you'll get the best results that way. I'm wearing headphones today. Most of the time I wear the headband. It's very handy, but it's not great, not by a long shot. I think it's fine for people who have hair, which I have very little of. So when I wear my head tracker with the included headband, I wear a hat. I usually wear a hat anyway. I'm old, I get cold easy, and my head gets cold. So Unlike you young people, I have to wear my hair. But if I lean back too far, it slips a little. But when I'm wearing a hat, it never budges. So again, I think if I could grow hair, if I had hair, I think that would be a non-issue. But if you do have that issue with the headband, that it just seems like it doesn't. If you've got a hat, you can wear that with your headband if you don't want to use headphones, and it'll stay put. Another thing about hats is they can get in the way. You set your head tracking up to where, again, we're talking about 30 degrees in either direction. Is probably because the point is you want to still be able to look at the screen. If you have to turn your head so far that you can't see the screen, then it's kind of pointless to have a head tracker. Then you need to get a VR helmet, because with a VR helmet, if you want to look behind you with a VR helmet, you literally have to look behind you. Whereas with a head tracker, you could equate 30 to 40 degrees of head movement to 180 degrees behind you. But the bill of your hat can actually block the light, or block the camera from seeing the LEDs. So keep that in mind. If you have an aggressive setup on your config where you have to turn your head a lot to one side or the other, just turn your head around backwards, and that'll eliminate the bill. If it still happens and you're turning your head so far that your face is blocking the LEDs, you need to adjust your map settings. You've got it set to aggressive to one way or the other. You shouldn't have it set up to where you turn your head so far that even your face is blocking the LEDs, blocking the camera from seeing the LEDs. Bouncing view. Okay. You set up your head tracker, and everything's bouncing around. It's like there's nothing smooth about it at all. Or it freezes. Your head tracker has to see 3 points of light. You have 3 LEDs, and you can only see those 3. If you're picking up more light from, say, windows, or in my case, I've got a bright LED light in direct line of sight of my camera, I'll either have to jack my threshold settings up high enough to overcome that, or just turn off the light. But yeah, just try to not to have even artificial light in direct line of sight of your camera, because it can create problems, because it has to be 3 points of light. If you've got 4 points of light, or even just a flicker of a light from, say, a window, it's going to mess you up. It's not going to work right. The head tracker and OpenTrack and your camera, they work on 3 points of light. I've got a question once about, said, well, my head tracker's not exactly straight. It kind of tilts to one side or the other. That's fine. Actually, it can even be better than fine, because when you tilt down, you can get a convergence between the middle light and the top one. And when you tilt down, if you're, say, looking at the floor of your cockpit or whatever, and if you tilt too much, those 2 lights can converge on the camera, and now you've got 2 points of light instead of 3, and it'll get stuck there until you raise your head back up, and then it'll be okay. So if it's tilted to one side or the other, that's a non-issue. Just being tilted, now your 3 points of light are like this instead of like this. So it doesn't matter how much you tilt, they're not going to converge. Don't cross the beams. Steam settings. Okay. On Steam settings, there's a few games that you'll have in your Steam program, such as Project Cars 2. You'll need to launch Project Cars 2 from within Steam if you want to use the head tracker, because it'll give you an option when you hit play. It'll be, play Project Cars 2, play Project Cars 2 and 2 and Steam VR, or etc. So select the Steam VR version to start Project Cars 2 within Steam, and then your head tracker will be fine. I think programs like IL2 Sturmovik, Cliffs of Dover, and also Great Battles, like the Battle of Moscow, etc. I haven't had to do anything in those sims. It just works automatically. X-Plane 11, down at the bottom of your menu. I think it might be in the graphic settings, but it'll be at the bottom of your screen. A checkbox to enable head tracking. Some games will be automatic, and some you'll have to select it as an option. Flight Simulator 10 FSX. I've helped several people get running in that with no issues. The irony of that is I can help you, but I can't help myself. I was a flight simulation developer for years, 6 years actually, and so I got every alpha version, beta version, every version of Microsoft Flight Simulator from 98 to Flight Simulator 10, including all the combat flight simulators that I developed for, and it's like termites in my system. I could start fresh and just with a fresh system, and it would be probably a non-issue. But FSX is notorious for making trouble with head trackers. Any version, they're all, whether it's Track IR, Track Hat, Dell and Clip, they're all the same as far as what their Achilles might be. And FSX I developed for it, I just can't say it, because it's notorious for making trouble for head trackers. But lastly, what I can think of is you start OpenTrack, you get it going, and then it quits, or you've made some changes and now OpenTrack doesn't work anymore. It's like it's all mucked up. It's not going to do any good to uninstall and reinstall. What you do is you go to your documents folder. In the last 4 months this has happened twice, and this worked both times for people. Go to your documents folder, close OpenTrack, go to your documents folder, a folder named OpenTrack probably 2-3, OpenTrack 2-3. Delete that. If you have any profiles or configs that you don't want to lose, and copy and put them on your desktop or someplace, and then delete that folder. Restart OpenTrack, and it will create a new folder, and you should have your OpenTrack working fine again. I know I'm forgetting something. I'll remember it as soon as I turn this off. But I want to thank you. I can't tell you how thankful I am for you. This started 7 years ago with a snuff can, some bendy straws, and some LED lights from Radio Shack, and you guys have made it what it is now, and I am truly thankful. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And good day.